So, welcome to VisionCast Network, where collaboration and technology come together in service to humanity. Today's guest, an awesome special person, Njeri Njuhigu. She's an architect, graphic designer, television writer, and television producer, and a former caregiver for her aging parents, and also the founder of the CareboxNetwork.org. Welcome, Njeri. So great to see you again. It's been a
Thank
while.
you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So let's get into it. Tell us about your backstory and why you do what it is that you do and the lovely path that took you to this moment.
Um, my backstory. So I originally wanted to be an architect, and I went to school to be an architect at Washington University in St. Louis.
Okay.
And for a number of years, I had this idyllic vision that I was going to change affordable and accessible housing for the nation.
Okay.
And I wound up doing commercial buildings like, airports and stuff like that. But as God would have it, I would wind up being in service in different ways. So somewhere around 2007, 2000, let me back up. So somewhere around 1998, I got asked to work on a movie, and that took me into entertainment from architecture.
Wow. So
And
what was that like?
that was like, it was pretty amazing because, I just surrendered to the process, surrendered to spirit, and I just went where the call was. And so I went from Florida to New York, from New York to LA. And John Sigler asked me to come to LA, and I came. And, the rest was her story, right? I wound up on the show Moesha. I did okay there for a few years. Then I wound up writing my first script. And then I wound up being the chairperson for the Committee of Women Writers. And then, as fate would have it, I got that call from my parents saying they needed me somewhere around 2010,
Okay.
because my dad needed to have surgery. So,
Okay.
after I had made some inroads in entertainment, I wound up, having to make a decision about whether or not I was going to take care of my parents or let my mom be in a nursing home, which I knew she didn't want.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what? Whatever you want me to do, I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do as a producer, as a writer, as a person, as a daughter. And, you know, 2011, I moved her in with me, her and her husband. Her husband had had spinal surgery, and my mom had a spinal disease.
Hmm.
So, it was full time and it was hard work. And so I rearranged my career. I produced my life like I produced TV is what I wound up doing. And so as a result of that, my parents really thrived in California, and I moved from scripted television to unscripted television. But as a result of moving into unscripted television, I started doing therapy shows.
Hmm.
And I got to see firsthand what the emotional and mental needs of people were. And so I became super interested in that, did a bunch of therapy shows like, Dr. Drew Rehab. I did couples therapy. I did marriage boot camp. I did a series of therapy shows as a producer. And so as a result of that, I got a degree in spiritual psychology.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school for that?
I
Curious.
went to University of Santa Monica.
Ah, yes. Yes.
Yes,
Is that on Wilshire?
it is on Wilshire. And I had met someone that had been there. And as a result of seeing how she was moving in the world, I said, I don't know what that is, but I want that.
I don't know what that, but I want what it is. I want what it is.
I want that. And I knew that it was an experiential degree, right?
Ah, right.
And so when I got my master's there, it really revolutionized the way I looked at life,
Hmm. It's very
right?
transformative, yes?
Huh?
Very transformative for you.
It was very transformative for me. I learned not to live in againstness anymore. I learned not to be a victim anymore. I
Hmm.
learned how to see the world from a macro view instead of a micro view, right? And it
Okay.
wasn't about my, you know, it wasn't about my perception based on my experiences. It was more about what I was feeling, you know, on the spirit realm, right?
Beautiful. Can I ask you a quick question here? You said scripted versus unscripted. What is
Hmm.
the difference between scripted versus unscripted television?
So scripted television is shows like Moesha, Law and Order, anything that someone has written that's fictional,
Okay.
that people are portraying on the screen as actors, right?
Okay.
There's a written word and they're following a written word that may or may not be based loosely in reality, but is completely fictionalized
Completely fictionalized. Okay. Versus.
versus unscripted, which is filming of what's actually happening with real people in the moment.
So it's kind of this is an unscripted discussion we're having.
Exactly.
Okay. I learned something new every day.
It's in a talk show format, but it's yes, it is in the
Talk show
unscripted
format,
category.
unscripted. Beautiful. And so at University of Santa Monica, sounds like you got to envision the life you desired to have and look and focus on that as opposed to other
Exactly.
limiting beliefs.
Yeah. I think it really honed my ability to have clarity in my life, right?
Hmm.
About what was good for me as opposed to, you know, the things that we often fall into like people pleasing and or needing acceptance or feeling unworthy of something that we have envisioned that we want.
Gotcha. And so, what was your single biggest takeaway from that experience, and how do you apply that to your life now?
My single biggest takeaway is that I am a human being. I am a divine being having a human experience every single day,
Right
and that
on.
the universe wants to give me all the things that my heart desires.
Beautiful. Awesome. So we
And it
can
will
just
meet me. Yeah, and it will meet me where I am, right?
meet you where you are. Beautiful. Wow, that is potent. That is potent. I'm gonna write that down. Would you repeat that, please?
I'm a
Universe.
divine being having a human experience, and the universe will meet me where I am.
The universe will meet me where I am. Yes. Beautiful. Love that. Fantastic. I'm gonna borrow that one. I'm so the first time I quote that, I'm gonna say, my dear friend Njeri Njuhigu once said, I am a divine being having a human experience. The second time I use it, I am gonna say, as I once heard somewhere, I am a divine being. And the third time it's as I've always said, folks, I am. That's how that goes. Is that okay with you?
That's okay with me. They taught me, and now I live in that.
Yeah, you live in that. So you're a leader by example.
Thank you.
You are a leader by example. And I found that to be true when we spent some time together in Scottsdale.
Yes, that was a great time.
You have a heart for people and you're present.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love that. I love
You.
that. You're welcome. So, how did you then come to be the founder of the Care Box Network? And how was that influencing your life and what it is that you do now?
Yeah, no, I became the founder of the CareBox Network as a result of something that, you know, I had had a vision for when I was at USM in 2014. We were in a group and then the name came to me
Okay.
and I said, "You know what? I want to be able to give caregivers what I feel I needed as I'm caregiving."
Hmm.
And cut to 10 years later, after my mom passed in
Hmm.
2023 and my dad passed in 2021, I had enough space and bandwidth to actually found the 501(c)(3) nonprofit, the CareBox Network. Um, and our sole purpose is to create calm out of chaos for
Uh,
caregivers across America.
Calm out of chaos. So, for those of us that have aging parents, how might we benefit from the Care Box Network?
Yeah, so what we do is we try to do caregiver programming. So we have like support groups
Okay.
where in their intimate support groups so that you know that you don't have to live in isolation during the journey of caring for your parents. A lot of people, they're over, you know, there are millions upon millions of family caregivers in this country. That's number one, that are unpaid caregivers. And
Mm,
as a result, they've either had to leave their jobs or they've had to restructure their families or they've had to restructure even their homes, right? And in that, it can become very isolating because their sole purpose is to make sure their parent is okay. And so they're no longer socializing with their peers. And so we create a space, a safe space for them to voice their frustrations and or get, peer-to-peer support, as well as do workshops, master classes to help them navigate the grief of losing their life, as
mm.
well as grief of knowing anticipatory grief, knowing that at some point the expiration of their parent is going to happen.
I hadn't thought of it that way. So the grief of losing their own life. It's like how my
Yeah,
life has changed now that I am. So
exactly.
I heard you say earlier that you knew that your mom didn't want to be in a nursing home, correct?
Yes,
And
I
I,
did.
I also believe that you knew that you didn't want your mom to be in a nursing
I did know that I did not want my mom to be in a nursing home. So my mom had spinal cerebellar ataxia, which is a neuromuscular disease that affects the nerves in the spinal cord. And it's a degenerative disease. And it takes years for it to like fully manifest in the body. Right. And so I'd seen my aunt suffer from it. I'd seen my aunt and uncle pass away from it. I'd seen my grandfather have it. And my grandmother, God bless her soul, in all of her fierceness, she took care of her children and her husband, right?
Yes.
Um, but I've also seen other relatives wind up in nursing homes.
Okay.
And for our family, or for me, it was imperative that, you know, I make those years of my mom's life the best years that they could be.
Mm,
You
mm,
know,
yes.
that was my whole goal, was to give her a life she never thought possible in those years.
Beautiful. Wow. That's powerful. That's potent. And so the grief of loss of life, one's own life, because there's no part of life that doesn't change when you become a
But
caregiver for somebody else. There's no,
yeah,
it's kind of
I
like when you become a parent. There's no part of life that doesn't change. It's like when you
yeah,
become a caregiver, it's the same type of setup. There's no part of life that doesn't change.
absolutely. There's no part of life that doesn't change when you become a parent or when you become a caregiver. As a caregiver, I had to restructure the way I worked in the world,
Yeah.
right? I had to move from a place that was fit for, one person living single, enjoying the life.
Enjoyment. Yeah. Go out and eat when
uh,
I want to go out and eat and do what I want to do when I don't have anybody to
do
talk
what I
to.
want to do when I want to do it, to being a person that, had to have wheelchair accessibility. I was very lucky. I had a friend build a ramp for the house that I was in so that my mom we could get the wheelchair in the house. Built a whole deck for us. I'm so grateful that I had a tribe, which is also important for people that take on a caregiving journey, is that they identify the people in their life that can be part of their tribe, right?
Mm,
Because it usually turns out to be someone you never expected,
okay.
you know, um, because you may need someone to sit with your parent for an hour or 2 hours, right? While
Yep.
you just decompress and go to a movie, or decompress and have a meal with one of your old friends, right? Um, so yeah, no part of your life lives untouched. Your social life, your financial life, your emotional life, all of that takes a shift when you start to care for a parent and or, a child or a spouse.
Yes. So that must be difficult to navigate through.
I would say it's extremely difficult to navigate through emotionally for a lot of people.
And how does that show up in somebody's life that is going through that process?
I
How
think
does
a
that?
I think a lot of times it shows up in ways where they do, isolate
Okay.
from the people that are their friends. I think the other thing that happens is there's a lot of depression that happens.
Okay.
right? Because of that isolation and because of depending on what a person has, obviously, it determines how much of your energy you need to spend in actually taking care of them, whether it's hands-on or with a hired caregiver that helps you. There's
Hmm.
a lot of life management that you're doing for another person, if not all of the life management for another person, as if they were a child again. Um, and so, I mean, imagine you're running your life, you're living your life, and then suddenly your life now includes another person. And you have to do doctor's appointments. You have to make sure they have the right clothes. You have to make sure they're clean. You have to make sure they're in a safe environment. You have to make sure that they have the support that they need, as well as manage, keep yourself above ground.
Beautiful. And there's the added twist that in addition to those things, this person is your parent.
Yes. And often,
Can be your parent, might be your parent, which is kind of like a role reversal, right?
yeah, there is a role reversal that happens. And I distinctly remember my mom and I having a discussion, to her chagrin, I'm sure, that she was the parent and I was the daughter. I said, "You are absolutely right, mom. You are the parent and I am the daughter, but I
Yeah,
am also your caregiver.
yeah.
And as your caregiver, I have to be responsible for what happens to you. And as a result of that, this is why we're going to do these things this way."
How did that conversation go?
It
I
was tense the
imagine, I
first.
imagine, I imagine it happened a couple of times.
Yeah, it did happen a couple of times, but I will say it was pretty intense there for the first I want to say the first year, right? Because it takes time to acclimate because you have to think your parent, since we're focusing on parents, your parent is giving up their independence.
Yep.
Your parent had a house, your parent had a job, your parent had a life of their own, and now it's folded into yours. And often if they have to move, they are no longer in the home that they envisioned being in for the rest of their life.
Right.
They're no longer around the friends that they had as their support group and tribe,
Yeah.
right?
So you said something really interesting. You said they are no longer in the home they envisioned that they would be in for the rest of their life, which would imply that when they are no longer in that home, they are no longer alive. And that moving to a new place has some subconscious context of, oh my gosh, I might be passing into a whole different way of living. And it can be
Absolutely.
kind of terrifying.
Yes, it's very terrifying because, as much as our parents love us, putting their whole lives in our hands, requires a bit of surrender.
That's a kind that's a very gentle way of putting it, Jerry.
Yeah, it requires a bit of surrender. So
Requires a
yeah,
bit of surrender. So I would imagine that University of Santa Monica gave you some unique skills to support you in the work that you're doing. Am I
yeah,
accurate?
yeah, that would be an accurate statement. The University of Santa Monica really helped me learn how to be present in the moment,
Hmm.
right? They also taught me a lot about how to care for myself in the process of doing anything.
Ah,
Whether I'm under the stress of working as a TV producer or under the stress of being a caregiver or under the stress of building a business, they gave me tools and tools of the trade really, through spiritual psychology of how to manage, my own mental health in the process.
so it sounds like an invaluable experience.
Totally. I hands down, I would say it was one of the best things I've ever done for myself, if not the best thing I ever did for myself.
Yes. And you live out in that neck of the woods, right? You live in LA area?
I do. I live in LA. I live out in the valley, which I love because it feels a lot more like the East Coast to me. Except we don't have all the weather, we get
Yeah.
the sunshine and all the good things, right?
Yep. I guess there's traffic in common though, right? Both the East Coast and California have a lot of traffic.
Yeah, there's traffic wherever we go now.
Yeah, wherever we go, there's even traffic in New Mexico, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
It's mostly a person buggy though, only a little bit.
Only a little bit, only a little bit.
So, what are some really good takeaways for people to bear in mind
You know,
when
I think
creating this inevitable experience? So, I think we will all have this experience to some degree.
absolutely.
So, what are some really good takeaways that would support people in their mindset and how they approach this challenge, this opportunity in life that lays before us all?
I love how you rephrase that. I often tell people that when they're facing this opportunity in life, that that's exactly what it is. It's an opportunity. You know, it's an opportunity to love and to grow closer to the person that raised them and or has shared life with them, because it could be a husband or a wife, right? Um, and I often, you know, give them a way to reframe what's happening so
Hmm.
that they can look at this opportunity, you know, as a moment to really surrender
Hmm.
as opposed to trying to control,
Love that. Love that.
you know, because a lot of times, you know, we got to do it this way, we got to
Yeah.
do this. And at the end of the day, when you're caring for someone, the most important thing is the connection that you have and the love that you share. All
That.
all the technical things, all the technical things can be learned or done by someone else. But allowing to be yourself to be in that space of sharing space and being present in the moment and being able to hear your loved one no matter where they are in their process and knowing that you are enough to do the job,
Mm,
whatever that job may, you know, require of you.
beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So as we wrap up, Jerry, first of all, thank you for being present. Thank you for being you, and thank you for really all of the things that you've done that no one will ever know about that have made it possible for you to do the work that you're doing. So thank you for that, and that's number one.
Thank
Number two, you're welcome. Number two, how do people find you?
They can find me at info@thecareboxnetwork.org, or they can go to our website, www.thecareboxnetwork.org. And there, if they want to send us a donation, they can mail a donation and or they can electronically, you know, send us a donation via the link that's on our app.
Beautiful. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And will you stick around for a moment?
Absolutely.